On my many flights back and forth to Kenya, I've met some lovely people on the 28-hour trip. It's the people on the flight back to Europe and the US that I find to be most pleasant. Many of them have just had the experience of a lifetime, either in their volunteer work or study abroad. They've seen, heard, and felt things that you just can't hear because we don't have the same kind of schools or the same kind of slums or the same kind of orphanages that they do in Africa. But as endearing as they are, I'm not like them, and I don't want to be. I don't have fresh eyes or a new perspective on life. I'm angry. I'm angry because we live in a world where massive inequality is the norm rather than the exception. As we watch the wealthy become even wealthier, more than 3 billion human beings are hustling to piece together the $2.50 it will take for them to survive today, and not all of them will make it. This is incredibly difficult to grapple with. Many of us live in extreme privilege while others suffer. No one in this room is directly responsible for this injustice, but if you knew there was something you could do to change this, would you? It's the complexity of poverty that makes it feel so out of reach. But if we understood it better, ending poverty wouldn't seem too big, too scary, or too unattainable. Today, I want to take you to a place where poverty is more nuanced and more tangible. The road is going to be bumpy, we might get a flat tire, and there will definitely be times when you will want to close your eyes and scream, just as you would on most roads in Africa. But the journey will be well worth it, because when we arrive, you'll be able to see poverty and the people living in it in a completely different way. Let's start by taking a look at the institutions who are primarily responsible for creating the policies designed to end poverty: the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Their policies are entrenched in a dominant narrative in which progress is measured by growth in GDP and individual income. But this approach is failing us because we never ask the difficult questions about growth. Growth for what, of what, and for whom? Measuring progress this way is actively destructive, and it's reached a point where it's creating more poverty than it's actually solving. We know that economic activity alone cannot account for our well-being, yet this is the agenda that we import into the developing world. In order to understand poverty better, we must look beyond the traditional financial instruments that we've been using to prescribe and measure progress. There are other forms of capital accumulation that play a significant role in the health of individuals in our communities. And here's a quick snapshot of a few of them. We have social capital, which are the relationships and networks that we build and leverage. Natural capital, which makes all life possible and includes things such as water, fertile soil, and the sun's energy. And finally, human capital, which is the intellectual capacity that sparks innovation and creativity. This is what all of these assets look like on a network map. This is data that I've collected on approximately 100 women living in Kenya who'd be considered poor by our standards. Each node represents one woman. The size of the node refers to her financial poverty level. The larger the size of the node, the less poverty she's experiencing. The words that you see here are the names of the different women's savings groups that each person belongs to. These 100 women sort out into 9 different clusters based on their shared characteristics of the 4 different types of capital I've discussed: financial, social, natural, and human. Each color represents one of these clusters, and every single cluster is unique. You can think of it like the flavors of poverty. The sky blue group on the top, for example, they're like Rocky Road ice cream because they possess a full suite of assets. Whereas that bright green group down below, they're more like strawberry ice cream because they only possess one asset. What my map demonstrates is that there are ways to conceptualize poverty and wealth beyond other indicators besides economic. By exploring this diverse set of assets, we can move away from the single story that has dramatically shaped poverty and our perception of it. So let's get a little bit deeper into this map and see how these assets sort out. Meet Salima, a single mother of 3 grown children. She hopes that their lives will be better than hers because they were able to go to school. She didn't, which is made apparent by her inability to speak English. Her cluster, the purple group, is characterized by low levels of formal education, but they have very high social capital. Salima has incredibly well-developed relationships with other people in her community. She's a member of multiple women's savings groups. She's highly involved in them, and she says she could ask more than 100 people for money if she needed to. The relationships that Salima has been able to build with other people in her community have proven to be invaluable. We can move over to the red group and get to know Mama Kazo, who's standing in front of her rainwater catchment tank, a prized possession in a community where people depend upon the land. Her group is characterized by high natural capital. Mama Kazo and her daughter tend to a small farm, and they grow most of the food that they eat. It's surrounded by a tall wooden fence to keep out the animals who make their way from the hills into the valley each night. Mama Kazo chases them away by shining the bright beam of her solar lamp on them, an item that she's procured that's replaced her toxic, poor-performing paraffin lamp. Mama Kazo is harnessing the Earth's resources in order to sustain her livelihood, yet this doesn't translate as wealth in our current system. And finally, we can move over to the blue group and get to know Mama Mercy, who breaks the mold of the single story of the poor African woman. Her network is characterized by high assets across categories, which is evident when you get to know her. Mama Mercy is well-educated and a trusted leader in her community who started and chaired multiple women's savings groups. She was friends with the late Nobel Peace Prize winner, Wangari Maathai, working alongside her as an environmental activist. Over the years, Mama Mercy has invested in building a decent-sized compound. She provides housing for a few orphans that she's taken in. Mama Mercy does not have running water, but she's one of the very few people in her community who actually has electricity. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that any of these women have it made or that money isn't important. Quite the contrary. It's just that they don't experience poverty in the way that we think they do. They've had no choice but to nurture and grow other assets that could not be measured by traditional economic indicators. So what can we learn from all of this? Well, first, even within this small group of 100 women, we find that they are wealthy in all sorts of ways that we wouldn't expect. But this wealth has been relatively invisible to us. Imagine what we could learn if we explored how thousands or millions of the world's poor cultivated these assets. Secondly, if we only apply an economic lens to understanding poverty, it is impossible to see all the solutions. We need to rethink the fundamental principles we've been applying to ending poverty because it's not working. We cannot continue to treat poverty like it's all vanilla ice cream when it's actually more like Baskin-Robbins. And finally, what could you do to help end poverty? you can help me spread this big idea. The poor don't need our pity, they need our partnership. It's time to embrace the richness and the resources of the poor, move away from the trap of them and us, and radically reconceptualize poverty. If you can help change the narrative about the poor, the impoverished might just get the resources that they need that will make their lives better, not just wealthier. Ending poverty isn't doing things for other people. It's about doing things for ourselves and creating the world that we want to live in. Because at the end of the day, what's good for the poor will ultimately end up being good for all of us too. Thank you.